This is the US Open at Shinnecock Hills. I'm joined as ever by the beautiful Brian Keogh, and we've had quite an extraordinary day here, Brian.
Absolutely.
Brian, I took the shuttle in this morning with two of our colleagues from BBC Northern Ireland and was given a steer on tonight's show. Remember, they said you can't polish a turd, but you can roll it with glitter. So let's start with the glitter. We've got two cappuccinos, a book on the decline of civilization, and a gift from the Southampton Town Police. Where do you want to start?
Start with the book.
The book. Okay. So I watched Wyndham Clark play the 18th on Saturday night, followed him up the hill to the recorder's hut. Then, as he was walking towards the media centre, he stopped to sign some autographs. His caddy, Dave Pelakoudas, walked ahead and was greeted by a woman I mistook for his mother at first. That was a battle, Pelakoudas said. Ride the waves, she replied. Now, it sounded like the babble some sports psychologists might say, and guess what? It was his sports psychologist, Wyndham Clark's sports psychologist, Julie Ellion. Brian, we sat here this evening thinking Clark would not be beaten. Apart from Greg Norman in '96, no one had blown a six-shot lead. But there was one thing we didn't factor. So I walked to the first tee this afternoon as they were heading off and stood behind and thought, I was struck by the reception that Scotty Scheffler and Wyndham Clark got when they walked on. Huge ovation for Scheffler. Muted ovation for Clark, and I thought, okay, it's Scheffler's birthday, he's gone for the Grand Slam, and obviously he's the crowd favourite. Then they teed off and walked down the fairway where you were standing.
Yeah.
And you said you heard something that was that set the tone for the day.
Completely. Scheffler knocks it down the middle, as Scheffler does, safe, not going to go into any trouble. And Wyndham Clark hits this thing, bit of adrenaline maybe, and it ran down the right-hand side of the first fairway. And it's coming towards the bunker, and there's shouts of, get in the bunker. It comes up like a couple of yards short, but that sort of set the tone. That sort of made you think, hold on a second here now.
Get in the bunker.
Get in the bunker. And this is Americans. This isn't a crowd of European Ryder Cup fans. So I didn't really notice many Europeans around the place.
And that was only the start of it.
That was only the first hole.
First hole. Okay, and it got worse. Give us some examples of what happened next.
Yeah, it did get worse. It did get worse. Like, for example, on the fourth hole where he hit it in a bunker off the tee, there was a fan ejected, for shouting, "Don't choke, Wyndham," as he stood over the tee shots, And then there was a bit of get in the bunker as well, And this went on, all through the round. They're cheering for Scotty Scheffler. I hope he's going to do the Grand Slam, the birthday thing, the Father's Day thing, all that. But Wyndham Clark had to put up with a lot of abuse all the way around. He hit a great shot into the 12th, for example, lovely shot inside shatter. Not a sausage, not a titter of nothing, no applause. Second shot into the 13th as well. There's a bit of a fall off there on the green. He just went over here and it dribbled over the tiers. And as it gathered pace and headed off the green, more cheers. And then when he missed his par putt on the 17th, when he was two ahead playing the 17th, three-putted, missed a 6-footer for par.
Another big
cheers as well. He's only one ahead going to the last. So, he was aware of this all day. He said he was joking with the caddy. Jesus, when they got a cheer from somebody, he said, oh, look, somebody cheering for us at least, and they were trying to laugh it off. So he was kind of prepared for it, I think, in a lot of ways. And nobody wants to be the bad guy.
I wasn't prepared for it.
No.
I've never heard anything like it before, and I was truly appalled.
Yeah.
I was truly appalled.
Yeah.
And I was walking with Brendan Porath from the Fried Egg, our friends at the Fried Egg. I said, listen, how do you explain this?
Yeah.
This kind of stuff. And he said he gave me three reasons. He said Clark had a big lead and the crowd wanted him pulled back. Yeah, I get that. Sure. Yeah, we were like that last night.
You want to see a bit of excitement.
We wanted to see a contest. They wanted Scotty to win the Slam. Yeah, absolutely. Heard it on the first day. They were rooting for him. They wanted to win the Slam. And the third thing, obviously, perhaps not so obviously, Clark's reputation as a bit of a prick.
Yeah.
And he spoke about that last night as well. And I get all that, but that does not excuse it for me. And I happened to meet Michael Bamberger, and I asked Michael, I said, Michael, can you explain it?
Mm.
He said, and this is the book, it's the decline of civilization.
Okay. Yeah.
It's the decline of civilization.
Yeah. Everybody looking for their 15 minutes of fame as well, shouting something at their own time.
I don't actually.
A bit of notoriety.
Clark got the brunt of it. Well, no, Clark got all of it. But
Yeah.
if I was Scotty Scheffler, I mean, happy birthday is great on the first tee. You can live with that.
Mm.
But he's getting ready to hit a shot into, I think it was 12 it was, and some moron shouts from the crowd, "Happy birthday, Scotty!" And that was like every hole, every hole.
Got it coming onto the 18th green.
Happy birthday, Scotty. I mean, seriously, yeah, we didn't turn around and say, "Listen, whichever, just fuck off." I don't know. I don't know.
I know. It's I mean, look, this is, New York, Long Island. I mean, not that long ago, we had the Ryder Cup in Bethpage and we had this sort of stuff. US Opens in Bethpage and Monty and Sergio. There's a lot of abuse.
It's appalling.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, Brian. Yeah. I wanted Wyndham Clark to win.
You were kind of pulling for him in the end. I mean, even if you had mixed feelings about him or didn't really care about him one way or the other.
I think
trying to win. Yeah.
I think we all had. His behaviour last year was disgraceful.
Sure.
And we had no fans in this media centre here at all.
No.
But given what we witnessed today, I was glad he won, and he was a deserved winner. Now,
totally.
Tell us how he did it.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. I mean, as you said, started off with a 6-shot lead, 7 under par, and he makes par at the first, and he walks off, and he's only 5 ahead. Sam Burns started making a bit of a run. Sam Burns played great today. Bogey's the second, the lead is 4. Par is the third. Sam Burns has made another birdie. The lead is 3. When he got to the 5th, he made a bogey. The lead was down to 1 shot, basically.
1 shot.
And it was, 1, 2, for the rest of the middle of the round. For the rest, it was phenomenal stuff. I mean, he was getting it up and down. He was hitting great shots. He was hitting bad shots. He was holing putts.
But the point is, for the first time since Thursday, he now has pressure. He's playing with pressure.
Serious pressure. I mean, he did birdie the 10th and he got 2 ahead, but then, Burns would come back, and even on the 14th, he's only one.
There was a pivotal moment on the 16th.
Yeah.
When he drove it into the left rough and some serious stuff.
Yeah, he was in the heavy fescue and he's there with the caddy and they're trying to work out, now, hold on, where are you going to lay up to? Are you going to try and, can you get over that bunker? And he says, yeah, I definitely think I can get over that bunker, leave myself a short third shot, which he did. He had a phenomenal layup. He had a good third shot, ran through to the back of the green. He's got about a 25-footer and he hit this putt. And I thought, that's only going to get halfway there, but it's sort of picking up speed. And in the front door, 2-shot lead.
Right.
2 holes to go because Burns is playing great and, had great birdie looks on 17 and 18. In fact, one of them, you got a perfect line as well from Keith Mitchell, who shot 4 rounds of 70, unbelievable stuff. Missed both of them. I think he kind of knew that he probably wasn't going to get it done. But then, of course, what happens? Clark hits it to about 60 feet on the 17th, leaves it 6 feet short. And as we said earlier, when he misses the putt, there's a few cheers. Yeah. Goes to the last.
Now he's 1-shot lead.
He's 1-shot lead going to the last.
And Burns is on the range, hitting shots, thinking this is looking like it might be playoff.
Yeah, because he was close, wasn't he? At Oakmont as well. He was a bit unlucky there, and he hit it into the semi-rough. I mean, he's in that juicy stuff, and this is 109. This is Clark. Yeah,
from the tee on the 18th.
Yeah,
1-shot lead. Hits it into the semi-rough.
Yeah, and it's like it's like that, and he's got about 197 yards, and he stuck it in the on the green about 55 feet.
55 feet.
Yeah, and he was like throwing the head sort of the eyes to heaven, sort of thing, Jesus.
Because again, I was surrounded by journalists who said, writers said, no, he's blown it. This is looking at a playoff. Yeah, I actually asked.
Yeah.
I asked one of the guys who was standing, so what is the procedure now for a playoff? He said, well, I think it's 17, 18.
Yeah, it was two hole aggregate play. But the thing is, like, he put it so well all week. If you look at the difference between him and Scotty Scheffler, there's about it was the ability to make those par putts. Scheffler didn't putt badly, but he had 32 putts today, I think. Had he held a few more, he might have put a bit more pressure on him. And Clark he didn't just hit a good putt, he hit a phenomenal putt.
Hit it stone dead.
Stone dead.
Stone dead.
US Open champion, second time in 3 years.
Okay.
And a great win, and
a great win. Yeah.
There we have it.
Yeah, he deserved it.
Totally.
Okay, Brian, get the glitter out and give us number 2.
Yeah. Tell us about the gift from the Southampton police. What was that?
Okay, so this is a photo here of Joe Maloney from the Southampton Town Police. He started caddying here when he was 13 years old, and a couple of summers later, he became very friendly with a guy who came over to Ireland, from Ireland, to caddy here. That guy was Sean O'Flaherty. Sean became Rory McIlroy's manager, and so it was no coincidence this week that Joe got the job of watching Rory and walking around with him for the whole week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice lad.
Now, I was sitting on my favourite bench this morning waiting for Rory to go to the range when Joe sat down and gave me this. It's what they call a challenge medal with the 5 police agencies on the back of it that have worked this week. The Southampton Town Police, the Suffolk County Sheriff's Office, the Suffolk County Police, the New York State Police, and the State University Police. Joe also had a story for me. He said he told Rory this morning about a dream he'd had last night that Rory had shot 64. Now, Joe is no sports psychologist, but that's the kind of stuff that Rory loves to hear. And he said to Joe, I like it. So I followed Rory to the first tee, and Brian, tell us what happened next.
Yeah. So Rory hits this drive down the first pin high, 370 odd yards.
So takes the driver out,
Yeah.
hits it 370.
So 370 odd. I can't remember the exact figure now, but it was about 370 odd yards. It's something he said he wasn't going to do all week. But going backwards, actually, he said afterwards, I went out today thinking I have a sliver of a chance, the tiniest chance. And if you look at the final leaderboard, he went out tied with JT Poston, he shot 67, finished fourth. You know, he finished. But he finished 4 behind. So, you know, he probably needed to shoot the lights out. But he went out thinking, you never know.
No. He needed to shoot 64.
Okay, as it turned out.
Okay. He needed to, which is what Joe's dream was. You're going to shoot 64, okay?
Okay.
And so Joe plants this little seed in his head.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
As he said after, I knew I had a little chance.
Yeah.
Joe's planted that seed, and he hits this magnificent drive up to the side, just off the
side of the green, and you're thinking, oh, you can chip this up close now and birdie.
So it's an absolute cast iron board birdie.
But the pin is right at the top of a slope, and if you go anywhere even remotely past the pin, it's going off the green. What happens off the green? Okay, chips back up and makes par. But second hole, lovely shot in.
Disappointing for him because he's
sort of looking for a bit of momentum. You know, hits a lovely shot into the second, the par 3, doesn't quite get up to the top level, rolls back down off the front. Doesn't get it up and down, bogey, and then you're sort of thinking, and you could see the air kind of gone out of the balloon a little bit. And then the third hole as well, you know, the same thing, middle of the fairway, and the pin is on the right, one of those dangerous pins. We were talking about the pins, we were out there, and just past the pin, you know, he said he didn't really judge the first bounce well all week, you know, the skid and whatever else. Past the pin, little bit of spin, back down, he knows it's in the bunker, and he just and it came out, you know, on the boom mic says, oh, just go home, Rory. Oh, fuck hell, you know, right. And he just sort of, if he had a phone on him, he'd been saying, will you just turn on the engines, pilot, let's get ready, let's go back to London, you know. So he's kind of, he's pretty much.
So 3 holes he was done, basically.
Pretty much, he was gone from there.
Now, he wasn't the only one to have a bad day today. We mentioned Scotty. He was going for the Grand Slam. He had every chance, given the way things unfolded. It didn't happen for him.
No, it just didn't happen for him. I mean, he got close a couple of times. You know, he got within 3, I think was the closest he got, you know. He just didn't hold the putts at the right time.
Yeah.
You know, it was a 3 putt at the wrong time, or he go into a bunker. Just wasn't quite on it with the putting. As we were saying the other night, he was on the putting green, you know, after his round for a good while. Not quite on it. Hasn't won since the, you know, early in the year. Been close. I mean, so close. I mean, his record is phenomenal. 17th top 10 in the last 22 majors.
17th.
Yeah. So you have to go back to 1950. So Hogan, Palmer, Nicklaus, and Tiger are the only ones to do something like that. The stats guys are telling us, you know. So, you know, different 117 putts for Clark, 122 for Scotty. You know, the chipping and putting, he didn't get it up and down as much as Clark, who played. It was just a magician around the greens. I think that was pretty much it. So, you know, close, but no cigar for Scotty.
And certainly Wyndham Clark can afford plenty of cigars.
Absolutely.
you got the prize
I've got
money
the pri-
there.
I've got the
Tell
prize
us how
money
much.
here.
Tell us how much Wyndham Clark gets for winning the U.S. Open.
$4,500,000.
So $4.5 million.
Yeah.
Do you think he'll be able to repair the locker room at Oakmont with that sort of cash?
I think it'd be okay. And the psychologist, you'd be able to pay her for it a while. 2.43 for poor old Sam Burns. So if I don't think that's going to be any solace to him, to be honest with you.
Right.
I think Rory finished about 33rd, 127 grand. I don't know if that's
127 grand.
will that put enough petrol in the plane to get him back to London. I don't know.
Probably not.
I don't think he was. Yeah, he's just looking forward to a bit of links golf now. It's got the Scottish Open next, and then Birkdale. So a little bit of links-like conditions this week. So he just didn't have it with the back nine killed him. He said, he shot 38 on the back nine on Friday. He shot 40 on the back nine last night. He just said, that just absolutely killed me.
Right.
And then the second and third today put the kibosh on it completely.
Right. Now, so I guess that leaves the cappuccinos. Now, I'm not saying this show has caught fire this week or gone viral, as they say, but let me show you the cappuccinos they were serving in the media center all day. We've made it, Brian.
Sunday night.
We've made it. Now, I'm going to have a taste of yours, and I'll just... A bit nutty and kind of dreamy. A bit nutty and dreamy, I'd say.
All right.
Now, you have a taste of mine.
Right. A complex mix of bitterness and sweetness, Paul.
We'll see you next time.